A billionaire CEO thought he could bulldoze anything in his path, including a sacred chapel. But sometimes, God has other plans. What you're about to witness defies all logic and proves that miracles still happen in our modern world. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I really want to see how far the power of these stories is reaching. Marcus Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his 40th floor office, surveying the city below like a king overlooking his kingdom. His reflection in the glass showed a man who had everything. Perfectly tailored Italian suits, a watch worth more than most people's homes, and eyes that had forgotten how to see anything beyond profit margins. At 45, he had built Sterling Development into a real estate empire worth billions. And today, he was about to close the deal that would cement his legacy. The Riverside District, 12 city blocks of prime real estate, would soon be as to transform into the most luxurious mixed-use development the city had ever seen. There was just one small obstacle, a century-old chapel that sat right in the heart of his planned empire. The demolition crew is ready to move in tomorrow morning, his assistant Jennifer announced from the doorway. Marcus didn't turn around. He simply nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant outline of the chapel's modest spire. 6 a.m. sharp, he said coldly. I want that eyesore gone by noon. Jennifer hesitated. Sir, there have been protests. The local community is quite attached to that chapel. Some families have been attending services there for generations. Marcus finally turned, his expression one of barely concealed irritation. I don't pay you to tell me about people's feelings, Jennifer. I pay you to make problems disappear. If they want to keep their precious chapel, they should have raised the $20 million I offered them. They had their chance. The truth was, Marcus had deliberately set the price impossibly high, knowing the small congregation could never raise such an amount. He had given them 30 days, and tomorrow that deadline would expire. Everything had been calculated, every legal loophole exploited, every official properly influenced. The chapel of Our Lady of Mercy would be reduced to rubble, and in its place would rise a gleaming shopping complex that would generate millions in revenue. That night, Marcus worked late, as he always did. The office was empty except for him and the overnight security guard. He spread the architectural plans across his massive oak desk, admiring the sleek lines of the future development. His fingers traced the outline where the chapel currently stood, soon to be replaced by a fountain plaza that would attract tourists and shoppers alike. As he rolled up the plans, something strange happened. The papers seemed to resist, as if held by an invisible hand. Marcus pulled harder, and suddenly the plans unfurled completely, spreading across his desk with such force that his coffee cup toppled over. The hot liquid spread across the papers, and Marcus cursed loudly, grabbing tissues to blot the stain. But as he dabbed at the coffee, he froze. The stain had formed a pattern on the plans, directly over the chapel's location. It was a face, delicate, serene, with eyes that seemed to look directly at him. The coffee stain had created what looked unmistakably like the face of the Virgin Mary. Marcus blinked hard, shaking his head. He was tired, that was all. Too many late nights. Too much caffeine. He wiped the plans clean and rolled them up properly this time, but he couldn't shake the image from his mind. Those eyes, they had looked so real, so sad. He left the office at midnight, driving his Lamborghini through the empty streets. Instead of heading home to his penthouse, he found himself turning toward the Riverside District. He told himself he just wanted to see the site one more time before the transformation began. The chapel stood silent in the moonlight, its old stone walls glowing softly. Marcus parked across the street and sat in his car, staring at the building he was about to destroy. It was smaller than he remembered, humble even, with a simple wooden door and stained glass windows that had been patched and repatched over the decades. A light flickered inside. Strange, it was past midnight. Who would be in there at this hour? Against his better judgment, Marcus got out of his car and crossed the street. The wooden door was unlocked, creaking softly as he pushed it open. Inside, the chapel was dimly lit by dozens of candles. An elderly woman knelt in the front pew, her lips moving in silent prayer. She didn't look up as Marcus entered, but continued her vigil, her weather hands clutching a worn rosary. Marcus found himself walking down the aisle, his expensive shoes clicking against the old wooden floor. The walls were lined with photos, weddings, baptisms, first communions, funeral services, generations of life and death, joy and sorrow, all witnessed by these humble walls. "She knows you're here," the woman said suddenly, without turning around. Marcus stopped. "I'm sorry." The woman slowly rose and faced him. She was perhaps 80, with silver hair and eyes that held a lifetime of wisdom. "Our Lady, she knows why you're here." Marcus felt uncomfortable under her gaze. I was driving by and saw the light." The woman smiled gently. "No, Mr. Sterling. You're here because she called you." She knew who he was. Of course she did. His face had been in the papers often enough, especially lately with the news of the development. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to tear down this chapel," the woman continued, her voice calm, without accusation. "My grandmother helped build this place with her own hands. She carried stones from the river when she was just 16. My mother was baptized here, married here. I was too. My children, my grandchildren. 5 generations of my family have found God within these walls." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "You were offered fair compensation. More than fair." The woman shook her head. "Some things can't be bought, Mr. Sterling. But you wouldn't understand that. When did you last set foot in a church? When did you last pray?" Marcus couldn't remember. His mother had taken him to church when he was young, but that was before she died, before his father's business collapsed, before he learned that in this world, you had to take what you wanted or end up with nothing. "I should go," Marcus said, turning to leave. "Wait," the woman called out. She walked to a small alcove where a statue of the Virgin Mary stood, surrounded by flowers and candles. "Take this," she said, pressing something into his hand. It was a small prayer card, worn soft with age. On it was an image of Our Lady of Mercy. "My grandmother gave this to me when I was a child. She told me that Our Lady always answers prayers, but sometimes not in the way we expect." Marcus wanted to refuse, but something in the woman's eyes stopped him. He pocketed the card and left quickly, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere of faith and history. Back in his car, he pulled out the card to throw it away, but again he saw that face, the same sad, knowing eyes that had appeared in the coffee stain. His hands trembled slightly as he tucked the card back into his pocket. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the chapel, the photos on the walls, the old woman's gentle smile. At 3 a.m, he got up and went to his home office, pulling out the development plans once more. He spread them on his desk, staring at the space where the chapel stood. His phone rang at 5:30. Jennifer's voice was panicked. "Mr. Sterling, you need to come to the office right away. Something's happened." Marcus dressed quickly and drove to his office building. Police cars and news vans were already gathering outside. Jennifer met him in the lobby, her face pale. "The plans, sir. The ones on your desk. Security called me when they saw them on the morning rounds. You need to see this." They rode the elevator in tense silence. In his office, a small crowd had gathered, security guards, early arriving employees, even the building janitor. They all stood in a circle around his desk, staring. Marcus pushed through them and stopped dead. The architectural plans were spread across his desk, exactly as he had left them, but covering the entire surface of the papers was an image that made his blood run cold. It was as if someone had taken a massive photograph and superimposed it over the blueprints. The image showed the interior of the chapel, but not as it was now. This was a chapel filled with people, hundreds of them, all kneeling in prayer. And at the center, where the altar stood, was a figure in white, arms outstretched, face radiant with an otherworldly light. But what truly shook Marcus to his core was that he recognized some of the faces in the crowd. There was the old woman from last night. There was Jennifer, his assistant. There was a security guard standing right beside him. And there in the front row was a face he hadn't seen in 30 years. His mother, looking exactly as she had the day before she died. "How is this possible?" someone whispered. Marcus couldn't speak. His hands shook as he reached for the plans, but the moment his fingers touched the paper, the image began to move. The figures in the photograph turned their heads toward him. His mother's lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear but somehow understood. It's not too late. The room erupted in gasps and cries. Someone was praying. Someone else was crying. Marcus fell to his knees, the prayer card falling from his pocket. As it hit the floor, the image on the plans began to fade, but not before everyone in the room had seen it, captured it on their phones, witnessed the impossible. Within an hour, the footage had gone viral. News crews descended on the building and the chapel. The demolition crew, scheduled to begin work, refused to proceed. The crew chief, a burly man who had demolished hundreds of buildings, stood before the chapel with tears streaming down his face. "I can't do it," he told Marcus. "I won't do it. That image, my deceased wife was in that crowd. She was standing right there in the chapel she loved." Marcus stood among the growing crowd outside the chapel. The old woman from the night before appeared beside him. "She answers prayers in unexpected ways," she said softly. Over the following days, thousands of people came to see the chapel. Many claimed to have seen deceased loved ones in the mysterious image. Others spoke of feeling an overwhelming sense of peace when they entered the building. Donations poured in from around the world. Within a week, the congregation had raised not just the 20 million Marcus had demanded, but 50 million. They offered it all to him. Marcus stood before the congregation on Sunday morning, a week after the miracle. The chapel was packed, with crowds spilling out onto the street. He had barely slept, hadn't eaten properly, couldn't focus on anything but the image of his mother's face and those 3 words, "It's not too late." "I came here to destroy this place," Marcus began, his voice breaking. "I saw it as an obstacle to progress, to profit. I forgot that some things are worth more than money. I forgot that progress isn't always about building higher or newer. Sometimes it's about preserving what connects us to something greater than ourselves." He pulled out a document from his jacket. "This is the deed to the chapel and the surrounding land. I'm signing it over to the congregation. No payment required. Furthermore, Sterling Development will fund the complete restoration of the chapel and construction of a community center on the adjacent lot." The crowd erupted in applause and tears. The old woman made her way to the front and embraced Marcus. "Your mother will be proud," she whispered. "How did you know about my mother?" Marcus asked. The woman smiled. "She used to come here when you were young. She prayed for you every day, that you would find your way back to faith. It just took 30 years for a prayer to be answered." Marcus broke down completely then, sobbing like the child he had once been, the child who had lost his way when he lost his mother. In the months that followed, Marcus changed. He still ran his company, but with a different vision. Every development now included space for community services, affordable housing, places of worship. He attended services at the chapel every Sunday, sitting in the same pew where his mother had once prayed for him. The image on the plans was examined by experts, skeptics, and believers alike. No one could explain it. The security footage showed no one entering Marcus's office that night. The plans themselves bore no trace of manipulation or tampering. It remained a mystery, a miracle, a sign that some things transcend human understanding. A year later, Marcus stood in the renovated chapel for another reason entirely. He was getting married to Sarah, a woman he had met at a community fundraiser. She had challenged him, changed him, shown him that love was worth more than any fortune. As they exchanged vows, Marcus felt his mother's presence, as real as the day she had appeared in that impossible photograph. The old woman, now a dear friend, stood as a witness. "She's here," she whispered to Marcus. "She's always been here, waiting for you to come home." The chapel of Our Lady of Mercy still stands today, a testament to the power of faith, the possibility of redemption, and the truth that miracles still happen to those who have eyes to see them. Marcus Sterling, once the most feared developer in the city, became its most beloved philanthropist. He never forgot the night he saw the face of the Virgin Mary in a coffee stain, or the morning when heaven itself intervened to save a humble chapel. Some say if you visit the chapel at midnight, when the candles are lit and the streets are quiet, you can still feel the presence of something sacred, something that watches over all who enter with sad, knowing eyes full of infinite mercy. The prayer card is framed in Marcus's office now, a reminder that it's never too late to change, Never too late to believe. Never too late to come home. Every morning, before his work begins, he looks at it and remembers his mother's words from that miraculous image. It's not too late. And every morning, he whispers back, "Thank you for waiting for me." The chapel's bells ring out across the city. No longer a sound of ending, but a beginning. Not a destruction, but a resurrection. Not a loss, but a finding what was always there, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to believe that sometimes, just sometimes, heaven touches earth in the most unexpected ways. The city has grown around the chapel, but it remains untouched, a beacon of hope in a world that often forgets to look up, to believe, to remember that miracles aren't just stories in the past, but promises of the present. For anyone willing to open their heart to the impossible made real through faith, through love, through the mysterious ways of a grace that never stops calling us home. If this story touched your heart, watch the next video appearing on your screen right now. You won't believe what happens when faith meets the impossible.